Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Danny Vittori, and today we have on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the City of Lynn, Faustina Cuevas. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Lynn Community Television.
So now you're going into your third year, as crazy as that sounds. How's it been going for you there?
Yes, so year three. It will be 3 years exactly in June, so just a couple months away, it feels like. It does not feel like 3 years. It feels like much longer than that. In the DEI world, you know, our work is so, it's very heavy, so it tends to feel much longer. But yeah, it's been 3 wonderful years, 2 different mayors, and I've been very lucky to work with Mayor McGee and now Mayor Nicholson.
And can you talk a little bit about like the role of a DEI officer and some of the work that you've done?
Absolutely. So I do, want to give a shout out that the reason that this role came to be was thankfully to the Lynn Racial Justice Coalition, which is a local sort of conglomerate of grassroots organizations that are focused on justice, equity, and other sort of civil rights issues, human rights issues. They got together sort of after the murder of George Floyd to talk about things that they wanted to see in our community here in Lynn. And one of their sort of ask and requests of the city was a DEI role, which a lot of other communities near surrounding us were already implementing. So that came to fruition. They posted the role early spring 2021. And then I was hired in June 2021. And it's been a little bit of a journey. The initial sort of intentions of what the role was and what it has evolved into has been interesting, right? Because I think initially the idea of the role was very large, to be looking at internally and externally everything that's going on. I really wanted to take a step back and really analyze what are the issues going on internally, what can we be doing better to provide better services to our diverse constituents, and immediately wanted to tackle some of the internal challenges that we have.
And one thing you were even saying before is a big thing is you want City Hall to be open for everybody, saying it's your building. You don't want it to feel kind of like that place you only go to pay bills or anything.
Yep.
So that was a big thing for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Danny. And that comes from my own experiences growing up here in Lynn. I used to be my mom's interpreter, so I would go with her to City Hall to pay bills, to pull a birth certificate or whatever it might be. And those experiences growing up really shaped how I felt my mom was treated, or how the sort of bias around people who couldn't speak English, and that really stuck with me. And I didn't want other people having those experiences. So one of the first things that I wanted to do when I entered the role was really tackle language access. And I'm really proud to say that thanks to the support of Mayor McGee and Mayor Nicholson, we were able to get English and Spanish signage in the building. So all of our directories are in English and Spanish when you walk into the building, or come into the building, I should say. We hired a language access coordinator to manage all of our efforts. And we do have several interpreters, Arabic, Haitian Creole, and Spanish, that also serve the public when they come into the building.
Which is, you said, great. Makes people feel more welcome and not as awkward about it.
Exactly.
And fittingly enough, we're right in the middle of Black History Month, and we're going to be entering into Women's History Month. So really representations of diverse, amazing cultures. So what kind of events do you put on for those?
Yeah. So last night we actually had our Black History Month. It was a multi-generational panel talking about the Black experience here in Lynn, and we had an awesome lineup of panelists, and I hope people can catch that. I believe LCTV recorded it, so thank you all for that. So we had that awesome event where people were able to learn about, from the perspective of Black leaders in the community, sort of across generations, what has changed, what needs to be improved. And I do want to share a few of the things that came out of that. Our young people really talking about resources that are necessary. And then some of our other panelists too, talking about the resources that were necessary even in their time and now currently in our time. So that was heard loud and clear that our young people want more resources, more access to spaces. So that was really important for them to share that with us. In anticipation for March, we're already thinking about what to do to celebrate women trailblazers in our community. So stay tuned for that, because that's something that we are shaping up right now.
And I will ask, why is community engagement so vital to a position like yours?
Absolutely. Well, the whole birth of this role was because of community push, community advocacy. So I think it's really at the center of the work that I want to be doing. I think one thing that I really want to drive home is that I am a team of one. I am one person, and I think it's hard for people to understand that because I work in an office. So I think maybe the perception is like, well, you have a team around you, and I do, and I'm very lucky to have an amazing team in the mayor's office to work with. But when it comes to the day-to-day DEI initiatives, I really rely on volunteers in City Hall, some of my other colleagues to help me with planning and events and putting things together. I really rely heavily on our HR director when we're thinking about creating inclusion in the building and thinking through initiatives that we should be doing. I do a lot of implicit bias training for our city staff, which is something very important so that we can better serve our constituents. So all those things, I'm sort of operating all these sort of programs in tandem, right? So I'm doing sort of trying to execute the external piece with like the celebration of the Heritage Months, and then also execute the internal pieces. But one thing I always say to all constituents that I encounter is like, I am a phone call or an email away. I will always respond, even if I don't have the answer, even if my answer is not going to be exactly what you were looking for. I will always respond, because that is my duty and my responsibility, and I want to, and I care deeply about it.
And you mentioned volunteers too. Is that just within City Hall, or could other people volunteer to help with programming or other things?
Yeah, so right now I've just been relying on colleagues within City Hall, but other folks have come to me. There's been like community members that have had ideas of programmings, and I've definitely tapped into them. We've talked about it. I've helped either people coach them into sponsoring an event or hosting an event, but I'm always looking for opportunities for collaboration and supporting folks in any opportunity that they may have that are centered around like DEI.
And I will ask, you came in 2021, so after a lot of what happened with COVID, so is technology a big piece of your job too? Because people saw how much you could use it to make things more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that it's been really interesting to think about how do we leverage technology to make things accessible. And one of the sort of key things that I've been tapping into and sort of the resource of knowledge of wealth that I've been tapping into is our Disability Commission. Our Disability Commission is made up of amazing commissioners who they themselves hold a disability, and they have been really integral in helping me understand what are the ways that we can be more inclusive and more accessible in the building. So that's something that I've been trying to tap into, is a lot of listening, a lot of educating myself, and being able to think about, okay, what now does this look like in action? So I've been taking sort of the lead from our Disability Commission around accessibility, because I definitely feel like they're the experts in that space, and I'm thankful for their knowledge, and I continue to listen and try to apply the information they're sharing with me. And they also won recently, they were awarded a grant, an ADA grant. It's called an ADA municipal grant. And that will also help us make the building more accessible.
That's all fantastic things to hear, and you're talking about you listen and you learn so much. So looking towards the future, what would you say are your goals going into this new year?
Yeah, so I think it's trying to figure out the ways that we can make City Hall more accessible. So just a few things we've done just even recently. We put changing tables in all the public restrooms. That includes women and men's restrooms. We recently installed feminine products for free that are available to the public in all the public restrooms as well, all the women's public restrooms. Those little things go a long way, especially when you think about how expensive feminine hygiene products are. Having those small ways that the building can be accessible to people, that they can walk into a restroom and have, you know, their minimal needs met in a way that secures their ability to not have to ask for something. Those sort of small, what I call low-hanging fruit, are really important. And thinking of ways that we can continue doing that is going to be a goal of mine. Last year, I applied for a grant through the state to conduct an equity audit, and we are actually, it's an internal equity audit. We're actually halfway through that audit, and that would also allow us to think through how we can make, you know, things more inclusive internally as well.
You definitely go full steam ahead with it, with how busy you are. And we're going to have to wrap up in a moment, but is there anything else that I hadn't asked about that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I think what I want to leave with is that this is hard work. This is very important work. We're actually, unfortunately, in the last month or so, we've seen a mass, what I'm calling a mass exodus out of these roles. 3 of my colleagues across the state just resigned from their roles, and it's because of the weight of the work. It is very exhausting, and when you don't have support, whether it's structurally, whether it's financially, whether all those pieces are not sort of aligned, it could make the work much more challenging and difficult. You know, they all left under different reasons, but it's something always on my mind, and I am very lucky where I do have the support of Mayor Nicholson. I do have the support of a lot of my colleagues in City Hall, and I do have a lot of support in the community as well. But it's something always on my mind that the challenge is so much bigger than us, and it takes more than just one person. I think my role is more symbolic than anything. I'm here as a symbol of like the work, and that this work needs to be happening. But really, I think beyond me, it really takes all of us. DEI is not just one person's job, it's all of our work. And I hope more people take me up on that, and that we get to connect. And again, I'm always available, and I'm never also above feedback. I'm always willing to listen to feedback. I'm constantly available to hear people's concerns and things that they want to see better. We have so many issues to tackle in this city, and it will take all of us to do that.
Well, from what I can see, you're very engaging, and more people are really starting to take that initiative themselves. And I'm so happy that you could come on today to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Danny.
Of course, anytime. And once again, I'm Danny Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we'll see you next week with more guests.